Here are 10 must-build, completely free champs that you can get your hands on in Raid Shadow Legends. This is going to be a mix of epic champs, legendaries, daily login reward champions, as well as free-to-play champs that you can grind over time. We're going to be talking about these top 10 picks, how you might want to build them, and the areas of the game in which they excel, right? Why you want to actually max these guys out. Starting with good old Scyl of the Drakes, who is the 180-day login reward champ, so I'm actually pretty close to getting my hands on Scyl, which I'm hyped about, because she's one of those champs that helps out early accounts in particular so much, dude. But not just that. Not only is she kind of good everywhere for progression for the longest time, if your account is still fairly young, but she's going to help you finish out, you know, Barbarian faction wars. She's going to help you progress on through Doom Tower. She's good against all Doom Tower bosses apart from like maybe Bommel. So hey man, quick kit breakdown. The A1, quite simple. Attack one enemy, has a 40% chance of placing strong decrease speed. Also has a 50% chance bucked of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. So as far as the A1 goes, so far so good. Turn meter control, decreased speed, looking pretty tight already. The A2 is an absolute powerhouse of an ability. It's a double hitter on all enemies. Each hit has a 35% chance of placing stun debuff for one turn. Obviously excellent into all wave content, right? Whether it's Spider, even Darkfire against like the mirror images that it summons in Doom Tower can be pretty solid. Very good in Arena, of course. And you know what? Even if you start to lose, Scyl of the Drake starts to lose their place in your teams as you unlock more and more kind of specialized legendaries to really push in certain areas of the game, she's still going to help you blast in Barbarian specific rooms, that kind of thing. Faction wars in particular with the revive, right, which can be very important for getting your hands on the 3 stars in every stage in Barbarian faction wars. Revives an ally with 50% HP, 50% ally protection buff on them for 2 turns. It is only a single target revive, but you know what? That's pretty darn solid just to have as a cherry on the top. She's also a defense-based champ, so she's very easy to keep alive as well, which is of course quite important if it's your reviver, right? You want it to be as tanky as possible. The passive, to be honest, is the raspberry besides the cherry. I don't know, man, I'm kind of pushing that metaphor to its extreme, but the passive heals allies by 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. Dude, just build this gal with as much speed as you possibly can. She needs some accuracy as well, of course, to land the stun, but perception sets, speed sets, get her moving as quickly as you possibly can, and you're just triggering this heal so much more often. Also places a 30% increased speed buff on a random ally for 2 turns just on the passive. Man, I really like that passive. Again, just kind of good everywhere. Another option for gearing Scyl is of course a relentless set, but again, just make sure to not neglect the old accuracy, man. Not just for like the turn meter reduction and stuff on the A1, but of course to increase the chance of landing that stun as you take on increasingly more difficult content. Next up, you knew that this was coming, boys. We've got to touch on Arbiter real quick. Of course, you'll get your hands on Arbiter by just completing missions along your mission rewards track. You'll eventually get yourself Arbiter. She is an absolute no-brainer, must build every time you acquire her as soon as possible. Similar to Scyl, she's very good into all areas of the game, really. She'll probably last you even longer than Scyl, to be honest. She specializes most probably in Hydra and Arena. The A1 is a double hitter with a chance of placing weaken debuff on each hit, so pretty solid there. The A2 is an attack all enemies one time with a 100% chance of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn, so some buff peel action going. Again, solid into Hydra, solid into forms of PvP. Very nice indeed. The A3 is a strong version of increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, then for the turn meter of all allies by 30%. Very nice. And it even heals all allies if they are less than 50% HP when this ability goes off. So very nice indeed. On the A4, she has a huge revive, far superior to Scyl of the Drakes' revive, reviving all dead allies to 35% HP and filling their turn meter a little bit, then grants an extra turn to this champion if an ally was successfully revived. Very good stuff indeed. It's just a free extra turn, dialing the cooldowns down of all of your existing skills, particularly the A2, right, which is sitting at a 4-turn cooldown otherwise. And so yeah, the value of that extra turn really cannot be underestimated. And as for the aura, of course, it's one of the most powerful ally speed auras in the game for Arena. Very nice indeed. And yeah, to put it into context, Arbiter, still very commonly used, even in super high-end Arena on accounts that are years old. So yeah, if you're a new player, build this gal as soon as you get her, man. Speaking of new players, if you are a brand new player or you're looking to start off a new Raid Shadow Legends account, make sure to do so by clicking on the promo link down below at the top of the video description to start off a fresh account with a free epic champion in the form of Juliana, who we actually just covered recently in a underrated epic champs video. Very, very solid boss killer Juliana is. And as well as grabbing yourself a Juliana, you'll also start off your new raid account with a whole bunch of free starting supplies. So there you go, man. Go ahead, hit that promo link, and yeah, use Juliana to grind your way towards all of the sweet free champs that we're going to be covering in this video. Next up, another free champ that might be, honestly, a little bit underrated is going to be one of the clan shop legendaries that you can get your hands on. So once you join up with a clan, you start doing some clan quests and some clan coins. You can be spending those on good old Yakarl as long as your clan is at level 9, right? Yakarl the Scourge. This might be one of the more underrated free-to-play legendary champs that you can get your hands on, but for me, he's probably going to be a must build. What do you guys think? I'm going to make a case for this son of a gun at least. So like any legendary that you can get your hands on early, he's going to kind of help you out everywhere super early on, right? Until you find better options and more specialized options to help you out. He's going to be a bit of a juggernaut for you in Arena, but you know what? He's also going to unlock hard mode Fire Knight for you later on, as well as help you out against Darkfare later on too. And so hey, I believe that holding on to this guy is going to be a solid long-term investment. I feel like you might as well build out your Yakarl, man. Now, the A1 attacks one enemy 2 times each hit with a 50% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn, right? So it's a multi-hitter, it's a freeze applier. Pretty solid, at least into helping you get started into hard mode Fire Knight, or at the very least, he can be a strong component of a hard mode Fire Knight team, where the freeze becomes very important indeed, as well as the multi-hitter element. Now, the A2 attacks one enemy, has a 100% chance bugged of placing a strong decreased speed debuff for 3 turns, and a 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Also steals 100% of the target's turn meter, and places an increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. Very nice indeed. It will even ignore half of the target's defense against targets under freeze debuffs. So all in all, just a really big smack on the A2, applying all kinds of control and a speed buff to Yakarl himself. Very nice indeed. And on the A3, attack all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% against targets with 75% or more turn meter. Also, this debuff cannot be resisted by targets with 75% or more turn meter. And I think that really this A3 is what is going to make Yakarl so good into the likes of more difficult Darkfare encounters, right? Of course, when you jump in against Darkfare, it summons all of those mirror images of your own team against you, and just being able to swing in with the A3 right away against a team of enemies that are super strong and that are starting out the fight with about 75% turn meter, he can just freeze like half of them already. Of course, it can't be bucked up to be any higher than a 75% chance of placing the freeze, but that's still pretty solid when it cannot be resisted against targets whose, you know, it's nearly their turn. Just checking out Yakarl's reviews real quick. They're kind of mixed in places. Obviously, Demon Lord, yeah, he sucks. Sucks like crazy. Sort of average everywhere. People like him in Faction Wars. People like him a fair amount, at least, in Arena Offense. I don't know, man. What do you guys think of good old Yakarl? Needless to say, in order to land those freezes, particularly on the A1, if you're going to be using him with hard mode Fire Knight, you want to build out Yakarl with Perception Gear, whereas in Arena, dude, he's attack-based. You can land the freeze anyway if your opponent's turn meters at 75% or above. So you could just build him in like Cruel, Savage. Have fun, man. Have fun clapping cheeks with ridiculous amounts of damage, and you know what? Even if you don't one-shot people, there's a pretty damn solid chance that you're going to freeze them as well. So, there you go, man. Yakarl the Scourge. Next up, we gotta talk about Visix the Unbowed, who's the 270-day login reward legendary champ. And dude, don't be fooled by her ratings, man. She's actually rated kinda crappy in most places, but where she's good, she's really damn good. Honestly, Faction Wars 4.4, that's kinda criminally underrated. To be honest, maybe you just get her too late on that people, you know, are a bit disappointed with her when they eventually get her for Faction Wars and they just find they don't need her anymore quite as much, but she's damn good in Faction Wars, realistically. Also, obviously fantastic into Hydra. 4.6 even feels like it might be a little bit underrated. But hey, let's cover the kit and let me know down below what you guys think of good old Visix the Unbowed. Is she a little underrated, man? I feel like she is solid as hell and is absolutely a must build. The A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, each hit with a 100% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. Fill this champion's turn meter equal to the amount the target loses. So it's effectively 10 meter steal, right? Very, very nice indeed for the A1. The A2, this is sweet. Attack all enemies, 100% chance of placing strong decrease speed. Also places a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champ for 2 turns. Very, very nice. Absolutely the kind of skill that you need on a champ that's going to be the backbone of your team. And the A3, just to top it all off, attack all enemies, place a provoke debuff for 1 turn. I want to point out, by the way, this is a place a provoke debuff for 1 turn, meaning it's not like a chance to hit or some nonsense like that, right? Very, very reliable indeed. Places a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 2 turns. Now, when it comes to actually gearing up your Visix, dude, I've seen... This is like one of the only legendary champs I've seen where people actually recommend lifesteal gear on the champ, on the Visix, right? And I guess it's because she's tanking up a whole crap load of attacks, right? She's got ally protect constantly up on all allies, which is obviously awesome. And she's also provoking the crap out of enemies, shielding the crap out of herself. But the difference is with Visix is I guess she has an attack all on the A2 and an attack all on the A3. So she's actually dishing out like a reasonable enough amount of damage that a lifesteal set just, I guess, outperforms the likes of, you know, a regeneration set or something like that. Now, obviously, it's a little bit team dependent. If you're running her alongside a very, very reliable healer or something, then maybe it's not necessary to have the lifesteal and you can just stack her up with just, you know, max health, high defense as possible. Of course, you can't completely ignore accuracy on Visix because you do need to be trying to place that strong version of decrease speed on the A2 as well. So yeah, gonna have to build it with some accuracy, but yeah, there's a cool amount of gearing options with Visix, man. Lifesteal Visix, though, sounds really, really saucy to me, and that would be the set that I would be looking to try out first. And just to mention her aura, by the way, yeah, it's massive increased ally defense in faction crypts, which, I don't know, man. I just think that she's great for faction crypts, and I feel like 4.4 is, yeah, really selling her short. You know what I'm saying? Enough with the more controversial picks from these free-to-play gods. Let's move on to Drexthar, who was absolutely unequivocally and definitely a must-build free-to-play legendary. You've of course got your hands on Drexthar by just blasting the hell out of Tag Arena. Then, once you earn enough gold bars, head on into the Bazaar and just buy the fragments for Drexthar every day. They're on a 24-hour cooldown. You can only buy one at a time, but my god, is it worth it, dude? This guy, extremely, extremely good into Demon Lord. Very, very reliable HP burn. And even if and when you don't need him in Demon Lord anymore, well, he continues to scale into some sweet kind of mid and late game content as well. Let's talk about the kit, man. Triple hitter on the A1 has a 30% chance of placing that HP burn debuff for 2 turns. Heals this champion by 20% with the damage inflicted if the target is already burning. Decent stuff. Okay. A2 attacks all enemies, has a, 60% chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% if the target is burning. Also places a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns if the provoke debuff is placed. Obviously, this is not going to help you out all that much against clan boss. And finally, the passive has a, 75% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 2 turns on the attacker when hit. This champion's resistance, dude, this is key. This champion's resistance increases by 10 for every enemy under a HP burn debuff, stacking up to 50. Man, Spider's Den. Use Drexthar as your main tank to just tank up all of the Spiderlings. They're all swinging into him. They're all getting HP burn debuff applied. Getting that extra 50 resistance on Drexthar is going to be pretty damn easy. And that is on top of what's already his baseline 50 resistance stat. So he basically has 100 resistance for free into certain encounters again, namely Spider. And so this is how Drexthar continues to scale, right? When you're going into Spider stage 20, Drexthar is negative affinity, right? He's force affinity, and so the mobs, or the Spiderlings in Spider Stage 20 will all just focus down the Drexthar, man. As long as he's like the only force affinity guy, they'll all focus him down thinking, oh man, we're landing strong hits against Drexthar. We're gonna own this guy. Whereas really, you're just stacking resistances like a madman, and yeah, you're doing just fine. He's just an awesome, awesome tank in that stage in particular. Slap him in some perception style gear so he can be landing those HP burns. Smack him in some lifesteal gear, right? He's got a triple hitter on the A1, an attack all on the A2, and so he's able to heal up pretty effectively. And to top it all off, he will scale quite nicely into the Spider and Dragon bosses in the Doom Tower as well. Just because, well, HP burn is just that good, right? Up next, my god. It's time for Mithrala, one of the, honestly, just best champions in the game. Insofar as I can tell, the ratings also kind of reflect that too. Yeah, she is fantastically, awesomely good. You want to get your hands on Mithrala via fragments that can drop from Hydra. Pretty tough to get your hands on. It's going to be quite the grind. If you're a brand new player, it's going to be a while right? A good while. We're talking a good few months at a minimum before you can actually start slapping Hydra and accruing some rewards from that. But I mean, dude, let's just break down the kit. This champ is unreal and a very, very obvious must build. Attacks 2 times at random, each hit with a 100% chance of placing a strong version of poison debuff for 2 turns. So just already right from the get-go, just a kind of unbelievable A1 in terms of value. Right off the bat. The A2 is an attack all enemies, place a Hex debuff for 2 turns. Also places a strong increase defense buff and strong increase attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. So she just has 2 of the strongest buffs in the game already covered, as well as the Hex, which is obviously extremely, extremely powerful into Hydra. Yeah, amazing. She brings it. The A3 removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a strong strengthen buff and shield buff equal to 30% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 2 turns. This is a 3-turn cooldown, man. So realistically, she has this up constantly and is removing debuffs on a 3-turn cycle constantly. Just immensely, immensely good. I mean, everything that you'd want from a support, right? She's bringing 3 extremely powerful buffs and shields on top of that, and debuff removal on top of that, and an A1 that's doing pretty solid damage as far as support style champions go, is like the cherry on the top. But that's not just the... Dude, we got another raspberry on the top here, man. Check out this passive. I mean, I'm not even going to read the first part because it doesn't actually apply to bosses. You can read this bit if you want. I'm more interested in the bottom part right here, right? Increase this champion's resistance. The amount by which it is increased is equal to the amount of accuracy this champion has. Dude, that's mental, okay? You're going to build it with accuracy anyway because you're trying to land a Hex debuff, right? And you're also trying to land poisons. So you just build it with all kinds of accuracy, and she just gains resistance passively. She like double dips into the accuracy to also get resistance as well. Man, I mean, insanely, insanely good stuff. And to top it all off, her aura is actually a plus 80 accuracy in all battles as well, which for her is accuracy and plus 80 resistance, you know? Now, needless to say, getting her in as much accuracy gear as possible is going to help you out. Not accuracy really, right? We talk about perception gear. Though in PvP, you can of course go into the likes of, you know, a mix of perception and stone skin, that kind of thing, if you want to use it in PvP, which I mean, what am I talking about? Let's be real. Of course you're going to be using her in PvP as well. She's just too OP. So yeah, that's Mithrala. She's a hell of a long grind, but there you go. She's a must build. I've got to say as well, as an honorable mention for a champ that I'm not going to cover in this video, because it's almost just like too obvious at this point, but Faction Wars, you eventually get Lydia at the end of Faction Wars. I mean, just build Lydia. I don't know what to say, but you might be here grinding this for like 2.5 years, and so I'm just not going to include her in this video. I'm just going to throw her in there as more of like an honorable mention. Next, for a champ that is a little bit more achievable for the more early game players, we're going to talk about Archmage Hellmut. Of course, you pick up Hellmut from clearing secret rooms in Doom Tower. My account is 3 months old, and I've already got something like, I don't know, 20 or 30 fragments for Hellmut. Let me actually check real quick. Oh god, I'm actually on 39 fragments. That's pretty good, man. So you can get your hands on this guy rather quickly then. Not bad, man. Okay, back to the review. And Archmage Hellmut is just going to help you out like crazy in any Bannerlords specific content, Faction Wars, Secret Rooms, that kind of thing. Great into all variations of wave content. Epic only secret rooms like that as well. Just brings a crazy, crazy amount of control, some solid buffs, and yeah. Let's talk about the kit, man. The A1 attacks one enemy. Fill this champion's 10 meter by 10%. Fills the 10 meter by 20% if this attack is crit. Needless to say, you're going to be building Hellmut with 100% crit, even though he is a support champ. Attacks one enemy on the A2. Also attacks all other enemies if the first attack is critical. There it is again. The second hit has a 75% chance, fully booked, of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. After attacking, decrease the 10 meters of each enemy without a stun by 20%, so even if the stun fails to land, amen, you're good. Just brings control by the bucket load on this A2. Does require a lot of skill tomes to buck this up. To be honest, I think it's worth it anyway. And what the hell was that crap I just said about 100% crit? You actually only have to build Hellmut with 70% crit. Forgot that for a moment. On the A3, you get an increased speed buff, a 30% increase crit rate buff, and 30% crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns on a mere 3-turn cooldowns, so he can keep this up constantly. Very, very good stuff. And yeah, you only have to build Hellmut with 70% crit after all, which is always, always nice. The passive is just immunity to 10 meter decreasing effects, and the speed aura is in... Oh, it's actually in arena battles. So you can actually get some early use out of Hellmut in Arena as well then, maybe in like Tag Arena or something, if you're like strapped for control a little bit early on. There you go, man. I think the reason that Hellmut is such a good build is because, well, not only do you get him quite early and he gives you instant value right away, but again, he also scales into some later team comps, one involving a epic champ called Scyl. If you're not familiar with Scyl, what does she do? She's actually another support style champ, I think, from the Orcs faction. What she does is strip all of the buffs off of your team and converts them into a huge attack all enemies nuke. Well, Hellmut is bringing 3 buffs in one skill. And you know what? A couple of these buffs are actually just not that common, right? The strategy goes something like get Hellmut in something like a shield set, right? Get him to buff everybody, and then you have Scyl one-shot everyone, and it's just a cool little composition that you can look to build later on with Hellmut. So how do you want to build him? 70% crit, right? Solid amount of speed, solid amount of accuracy. We really just talk perception again, aren't we? Let's be real, man. It's just most champs in the game tend to do well in perception sets if they're doing anything like any kind of crowd control or 10-meter disruption or anything like that. So that's probably how we want to build them. Not too much thought needs to go into that. Next up, one of the more underappreciated or easily forgotten epics in the game that you get completely for free after 30 days of playing Raid Shadow Legends, or at least it feels like the more veteran players kind of forget how useful and how good High Khatun is when you first get her. When you're 30 days deep into Raid and you get your hands on High Khatun, dude, head 10-meter booster. It's only like a 15% 10-meter increase on the A2, but it's a strong version of increased speed. Like, this skill feels so good, man, the first time you get it. Are you kidding me? Not only that, but she also, of course, has the 10-meter disruption, or at least the chance to do so, on her A3. It's an attack all enemies with a 50% chance, or never mind, 75% chance of decreasing the 10-meter by 15%. Also does pretty good. And on the A1, of course, she has a chance to apply a weak decrease speed debuff. Not that great on the A1. It's really all about the A2 and the A3, man. Is she a must build? I don't know, man. I've seen people put some disrespect on High Khatun in other people's videos that I've seen covering similar topics like this. I'd say that she's definitely a must build. Are you kidding me? You get her after 30 days? I mean, you're not just gonna not use her if you got a level 60 High Khatun and, you know, like barbarian secret rooms come up off, or like you're looking to progress in faction wars or whatever. Of course you're gonna use the High Khatun. Are you kidding me? Now, will she eventually fall off? Will you eventually, after maybe like a year of playing Raid, will she drop off and be replaced by better options and stuff like that? Well, like, probably, right? Probably before the year is up. But even still, that's like, it's just a long time of getting a lot of use out of a champ that you get after 30 stinking days, man. So yeah, man, High Khatun, build her to be fast as hell. Of course, like any 10-meter booster on your team, you want to build it to be the fastest champ on your team, so she guaranteed gets this off as quickly as humanly possible and boosts up the rest of your allies. But do not neglect to get her a decent amount of accuracy as well. So basically, we're talking speed and perception gear again. Because of course she does have that chance of decreasing 10-meter on enemies by 50% too, so just don't neglect that. Now last up, and I'm actually going to ball these last 2 champions into one here, and it's going to be, of course, Ramantu and Marius, which are very, very advanced mission progress Legos that you're eventually going to get your hands on. Now, both of these are kind of arena gods insofar as I can tell, even though they're somewhat not as strong as they used to be based on the current meta that exists at the super high levels of gameplay, which you'll probably be approaching by the time you unlock these guys, because it's going to be quite the grind. Both of these guys are absolutely prolific in arena. Let's start off with Marius, dude. This guy's kit. Marius is by far, by the way, the newer of these 2 champs. There was some people saying that at the time Marius was released and by the time you get your hands on him, he might not actually be as useful as he first seems. That said, I don't know, man. Are you going to grind through all those missions and then just not build the legendary that you get from them? What were you grinding the missions for then, you know? For that reason alone. Maybe he's just a must build for that reason. Anyways, A1 attacks all enemies with a 50% chance of placing an enfeeble debuff for 1 turn. Enfeeble, by the way, makes it so that any enemies who are under the enfeeble debuff can only attack with weak hits. The A2 is mental as hell. Attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 1/10. I mean, just crazy buff peel potential. Not just good in arena, but also pretty solid in Hydra too, of course, for just cleansing all of those buffs off. Also, the A3 plays a strong increased attack buff and strong increased defense buff on all allies for 3 turns, then places stun debuff on the enemy with the highest 10 meter for 1 turn, then get an extra 10. Dude, That's just so much value wrapped up in one skill. Obviously, not amazing for Hydra, because you're just not landing the stun, but even then, the buffs are still very, very valuable, and the extra 10 makes it kind of whatever, right? It's a freebie. The passive is just a bit of a counter to shape-shifting champs, right? Whenever an enemy changes form or attempts to decrease this champion's turn meter, counterattacks using this champion's default skill. Okay, fair enough. And of course, the aura is an increased ally defense in all battles by 35%. So as for PvE gear, we'll start with for Marius. We've seen people slam him in retaliation sets, so he counterattacks in with his A1 because it's just so goddamn powerful. Relentless sets to help trigger the extra turn mechanics even more can also be pretty fine. Slayer sets, maybe. I mean, everything he does is AoE. Maybe you just want to build him to just be doing a bit more damage. Maybe a Slayer set is the way. And for PvP, you're probably looking at either a Stone Skin set or a Bolster set with a Perception set to sort of supplement that. And as for Ramantu, a little bit more of just a PvP champion, to be honest. Less so on Hydra, right? The A1 attacks one enemy with a 100% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target skills at random by 1 turn, with a 25% chance of placing a stun debuff on the target for 1 turn if a skill has its cooldown increased to the max. Also, if the cooldown increase is successful, will also decrease the cooldown of one random skill by 1 turn of the ally with the highest turn meter and a skill on cooldown. Pretty damn solid stuff. The A2 is a quadruple hitter, attacks one enemy 4 times, each hit with a 100% chance of placing the following in sequence: decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed, and block buffs. All of these, of course, the strong version. My god also has a 100% chance of placing a true fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if the target has 4 or more debuffs after the attack. God damn. Next up on the A3, I think this is the buff remover. Attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies before attacking. Also has a 100% chance of placing a block active skills debuff for 2 turns on enemies without passive skills. There you go. Also was a 100% chance of placing a block passive skills debuff for 2 turns on enemies with passive skills. Okay, dude. So that's Ramantu. Just a crap load of control, crap load of damage potential. Decent amount of utility even for an attack champion. The debuffs that he places are kind of mental. Is it polymorph that screws over Ramantu right now? Yeah, I don't really have any experience at all in high-end arena. This guy to me just seems like a must build on the surface of it. It might be a little bit contested by folks depending on when you eventually get your hands on Ramantu and depending on the state of your account and depending on the state of the PvP meta. But I don't know. I feel like I'd just be a fool to not include Marius and Ramantu on this list. So there it is, man. And alright, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you also did enjoy this one. If you think that I am sleeping on any of the super OP free to acquire champions in Raid, make sure you drop them down below, man, and let me know how you would build them. Now, thanks for watching. If you're looking to start a new Raid account, make sure you do so by clicking on the promo link down below at the top of the video description to start your new account with a free epic champion and a whole bunch of starting freebies. Thanks again, guys. Do enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm going to catch all of you guys just a tad bit later, man.